First of all, welcome to D.A.R.E. It's a class that we're very special here in Hingham, that it's offered in a little agreement between the police department and the school department. We'll meet one day out of the 4-day cycle here at the middle school for half the year. So roughly 4.5 to 5 months, depending on the calendar and stuff like that. D.A.R.E. actually started, to give you a little background on the program, started in the mid-1980s in California, in Los Angeles. It was a way for LAPD to get officers in the school to deal with the growing gang problems, violence, drugs, and stuff like that. D.A.R.E. itself, D.A.R.E, stands for Drug Abuse Resistance Education. If you break down those words, that's exactly what the program's all about. Having the education, the smarts, the willpower to not abuse drugs. And the smarter most kids are, statistics show, the better they're going to make better choices as they go through life. And it was so successful in LA in the mid-80s, as it started to move across the country, it began to morph, because not every town has a gang problem, like Hingham, for example. The D.A.R.E. program here in Hingham started in 1994 under the direction of Officer Mike Perano, who later became our chief and retired a few years ago. I took over for him 14 years ago. This is my 14th year here in the schools, and the program is starting to change again. They're starting to get away from the drugs to a certain degree. Now it's more about decision making. They changed the D.A.R.E. into define, assess, respond, evaluate. Define, quickly summarize the situation or problem that you might be in. Assess what are your choices, and depending on the situation, they could have anywhere between 2 choices or 200 choices. And after they figure out the number of choices, you respond by making what you feel is the best educated answer or response that you have. And then after everything's said and done, you evaluate it. Was it a good choice? Was it a bad choice? Would it do things differently? Would it do things the same? And that's what the program is now becoming, which makes perfect sense for this age group in the middle school, because if you actually look at how their lives are progressing, in 2-3 years from now, they're going to be involved at the high school level. Sports, driver's licenses, college applications, soon job applications. So the choices they make today really do determine potentially where they could be in a very short amount of time. That's why the point now is making good, solid choices. Here in Hingham, I still do talk about drugs. The workbook that all the kids get does focus on the gateway drugs, the nicotine, alcohol. They did take marijuana out. I still talk about marijuana because the way the law is changing here in Massachusetts, for example, a lot of kids are confused about it. They do talk about the medical marijuana. If it's legal, why is it bad? Such as alcohol. And I tell them, well, at 21, when the legal age is to consume alcohol and to possess alcohol, you're mostly fully grown. Your brain's developed for the most part, because your brain starts developing when you're early 20s. And just because you might be old enough to do it doesn't make it safe and healthy. You still got to be responsible. Now the new one is with the marijuana. Now that marijuana is legal, all the kids are like, well, it must be okay, because you hear the medical side of things. Not realizing that's for a very small percentage of the population. People with seizures and pain, relief. In the hands of an 11 to 13-year-old kid, marijuana can be very, very destructive. And I explain that to them also in class. How it does damage the brain. Statistics show that it does hurt the body more than it helps at that age group. But the bottom line is, that substance in the hands of a growing teenager and adolescent and young adult can be very, very destructive. So we talk about the dangers, how it affects the brain, the growing body, and stuff like that. Also in the time here in class, we do talk about resistance strategies, how to say no other than just using the word no, such as, strength in numbers, having good, solid friends, cold shoulder, just ignore the person, give reason or fact, such as my mom and dad will ground me, they'll kill me, whatever they want to use, and certain things like that as we go forward. Also, too, we talk about communication skills, because everything nowadays is on the phone with texting. There's no really more face-to-face interaction with a lot of people. By talking to people does tend to solve a lot of problems, because at this age group and even at the high school, the rumors start and kids kind of have conflict with someone else when really there wasn't any conflict in the first place. You got people out there that like to stir the pot and just kind of get them rabble-roused, and they like, because they enjoy the conflict, which really isn't good at all, especially at this age group. We talk about bullying, danger of bullying, how to report bullying, called the 5 W's, who was involved, what type of bullying, when it happened, where, location, and why, because a lot of times there's usually a reason why it actually happened. Maybe something happened outside the building that got brought into the building here at school, or vice versa. In class here in Hingham, they will get 2 quizzes, and they also will have to do an essay. The D.A.R.E essay is something that I enjoy reading because it takes place in the future when they're graduating college. And they have to write about and give examples how this class helped them make good choices to get to that point in their lives. Such as, like, in 7th grade, someone offered them a cigarette, knowing that it contains nicotine, highly addictive, #1 form of cancer. They said no, and they continued to walk on their way. It's a good thing they did that then, because 10 years from now, they're healthy, they don't have to worry about losing any type of sports teams and stuff like that. Another example they could give, such as, when in high school, they get invited to a party. When they showed up at the house, they saw underage drinking going on, knowing that they could be arrested, risk losing sports teams, risk losing driver's licenses, getting a permanent record, which could affect college applications. They left. They said, I'm good, and they gave an excuse, and they walked away. And again, they give a reason why that's a good choice, because they didn't get in trouble. Nothing bad happened to them. They give in to peer pressure, which we talk about also in class. And depending on how long they have, because the essay has to be a certain amount of time, they could talk about maybe just, recently in college, maybe something happened to them where someone offered them a ride back to the dorm, and they noticed the driver was impaired, whether under the influence of alcohol or another substance, and they said no, and it's a good thing they said no, because further down the road, whatever reason they want to give, maybe the person gets stopped by the police, got arrested, or whatever the case may be. We also focus a lot of time, because right now our area is hit with the opioid epidemic. We do talk about prescription pills, the dangers of that if taken not by your doctor or your parent or another trusted adult, and how it could potentially lead to heroin and other problems like that. So we do cover a broad range of topics here and there. So it is interesting. It is adult at times, but I do make it fun and entertaining, and it seems to be very enjoyable for not just me, but also all the kids, as far as class. Usually at the end of the year, with the poll, they say Jim's #1 and D.A.R.E's always the second favorite class. So I get a kick out of that. That's a good time. I mean, whether it is, someone offers them a substance that they know that can be very addicting, very dangerous, or even possibly very deadly. And by recognizing one of those 3 possible outcomes, they make a good choice. Again, whether they say no, whether they walk away, whatever it might be. I can tell them what the results might be, but the parents are the ones that are going to set the guidelines, what they're going to allow their children, what they can or can't do at home. Parents are a big part of it. If you actually look at the D.A.R.E logo, it's like a triangle. You have the police, school, and parents, and we're all in this together. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we're as strong as our weakest link. But if we're on the same page, which most people are here in Hingham, which is why I like this town and why I like doing this, we're doing the best we can to raise our kids in a healthy and safe environment here in town. Keep that communication open. They contact me here at the school. We have plenty of counselors and psychologists here at school that they can contact and talk to them that way. Not just with your child, but get to know your child's friends and their friends' parents. Because like I said, the more we're all on the same page, I think the better outcome's going to be. My door's open. Any problems, they can come in and talk about anything. It stays with me. Unless I do have to contact a parent. But I get kids coming up all the time, which is nice because it shows that they trust me, and which is kind of why I like doing this, and I want them to know that I'm not just a police officer, I'm also a friend and someone they can come and talk to. Like I said, I actually see them beginning in the 5th grade when I go in the springtime and I show them the smoking demonstration. Okay, so we're out here for a couple of reasons. Like I said before, if I did inside, the smoke alarm will go off. That room would smell like smoke from now until next September, which is nasty. But also, too, we're out in the fresh air. I'm only going to do about half the cigarette. There have been studies regarding secondhand smoke. For those who don't know what it is, if I was an actual smoker and I was smoking in the room, you'd see a haze of smoke in the air. You'd breathe that in. Studies show that if you're exposed to secondhand smoke for a long, long time, I mean a long time, years and years and years, it can make you sick. But I was exposed to secondhand smoke growing up. Your parents, I assume, were probably exposed to secondhand smoke growing up, and we're all healthy. So again, I'm only doing half the cigarette. I'm not too sure which way the wind's going to carry, the way the building's set up. If for some reason the smoke comes in your direction, I don't need the drama. All right? If you start coughing and hacking, I'm going to put it out. If the smoke comes to you and it does start to bother you, just move to the left or move to the right. Okay? All right? Okay, so now, if someone's actually smoking, they'd be inhaling that smoke in. See right there? Right. You see right there? Yeah, it's pretty gross. Like I said, now if you were close, you'd see the tube getting wet, which would be nicotine entering the body. And you can't see. No, not nicotine. No, it starts with a T. Yes. Oh, never mind. I'll give you a hint. I'm standing on it. Yeah. Tar. Tar is the actual substance you can see enters your body that eventually lead to cancer. There are other cancer-causing chemicals, but they're microscopic. You can't see it in all the smoke. But tar is the actual substance you can see that would enter the body and make someone sick. All right, so we're going to go back inside. And as you walk by, just take a look at the tube as you go back in. 6th grade, we talk about the topics I just mentioned. And then I'll see them again in the 7th and 8th grade during health classes. I come in for a class or two, depending on the schedule with the health teacher. And I just kind of do a refresher course. It varies from year to year, but most topics are either alcohol, now vaping or juuling with these cigarettes. We do talk about heroin, and also too good decision making, and stuff like that. But that does vary from year to year, but those are the 4 main topics that I hit on every other year, usually 2 one year and then the other 2 the following year. Like I said, it was big. Every town had it in the 80s and then into the mid-90s. Unfortunately, budget cuts happened. A lot of towns got rid of it, and that's when you started to see that spike in the opioids. Luckily, Hingham's one of the towns, thanks to former chiefs, whether it was Chief Borowski, Chief Carlson, Chief Mills, Chief Perano, and now Chief Olson. They kept it going. And we had problems in town, but it's not even close to our surrounding areas. In fact, a lot of towns now are bringing D.A.R.E back because it does seem to work. Having that police officer and that presence in the school of telling kids, look, if you make a bad choice, this is potentially what could happen to you. You know, I know, for example, Weymouth has started it back up last year after a long absence of good close to 10 years. So it's nice to see that Weymouth brought it back. Every day is different. The kids are great. I love this age group, the middle school, anywhere between an 11-year-old to like a 13-year-old, just because they think they know everything, and they don't. But it's just great to have that interaction with them because they got their whole lives ahead of them, and it's just cool to see them progress too. Because after they leave me in 8th grade, you know, I do run into them at the high school level, whether it's football games, dances, and any event that might be at the high school that I happen to be at. And it's just so awesome to see from, you know, when they're this big up to this big in a very short amount of time. Yeah, I think most kids get it. I mean, you have that group of kids that aren't going to go anywhere near it, which I can pick them out day 1 in 6th grade. You have that other group, unfortunately, that may go for it. But there's that big group in the middle. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, and that's what I'm aiming for. Whether the connection is, you know, you're going to lose sports, you know, you're going to think about your futures, you know, it could kill you depending on what it might be, and that's the big group that I aim for. Also, another one is too, the health-wise, and it's kind of gross. You think a lot of stuff can happen if they do get involved in this stuff, and that's the big group that I really aim for. That maybe they will, maybe they won't, but just delay. You know, just wait until they get older, you know, they're more developed, more mature, and then they realize, I don't need it. I'm involved with other stuff that's going on in my life. I don't have time for that stuff. And that's another key to this puzzle too, you know. So.
Get more involved, or?
Yeah, you can contact me here at the middle school, Monday through Friday during school hours, at 781-741-1550, and then just follow the phone tree. Email, Ramsey@hinghamschools.org. And those are the best 2 ways that you can get a hold of me anytime during the school year. Summer's a little different because I'm back on patrol with the police department and I'm take vacation time, but school year, I'm here every single day.